welcome to the Invest NWT Remote Roundup session, sponsored by the Government of the Northwest Territories and Invest Canada North. Today, we'll be highlighting the Northwest Territories, the second largest of the three territories in Northern Canada, and have three pivotal resource companies in the territory joining us for today's discussion: Goldterra, Nighthawk Gold, and Vital Metals / Cheetah Resources. Thank you to those of you who are joining us as part of AMEBC. You can find us under the hashtag Remote Roundup virtual event this year. We invite everyone to let us know where they are tuning in from and join us in the chat feature during the session. Our panelists and their teams can connect with you throughout the fireside chat, and be sure to submit your questions for the live Q&A to follow. Welcome again to our esteemed panelists. David, please give us a brief description of Goldterra and what makes your company stand out.
Thank you very much for having us. My name is David Suda, and I am the President and CEO of Goldterra. Our company trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker YGT. I'd like to give you guys a brief overview of our company and why we think that this is a tremendous opportunity for us to create shareholder value in the Northwest Territories with an excellent gold project. Goldterra is a district scale property. It is directly adjacent to the city of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. We consider this to be an excellent and low-risk mining jurisdiction, and so do many of our investors. We have a first mineral resource, which we published in 2019, late 2019. It's a 43-101 inferred mineral resource of 735,000 ounces at 1.79 grams. Our objectives for 2020 were to drill two of our targets to increase that resource and to update our mineral resource in 2021. We completed two drill campaigns in 2020, 10,000 meters of drilling at a target called San Otto, and then nearly 8,000 meters at our high-grade Crestaurum target. We're very excited to be going on to a new and very exciting target called the Campbell Shear. It is adjacent to the historic Con Mine, which was a very prolific producer historically, produced over 6 million ounces of high-grade gold, and the Campbell Shear was host to approximately 5 million ounces of that. So for us, having signed an option agreement with Newmont to have up to 60% of ownership of those claims is very exciting. We are now commencing a drill program, which is going to be roughly 12,000 meters. It's fully funded, and we've already drilled two holes, and very excited to share the results of that program through what appears to be a very strong run in the bull market of gold. So we also have other catalysts. We do have the results of the remainder of the Crestaurum high-grade program. We have roughly 10 holes pending, and those should roll fairly soon. I'd like to also just walk the investors through our management team so that they have a sense of why we think we can be very successful in finding gold here in this prolific district. We most recently had the addition of several board members and the chairman of the board, Gerald Paneton. Gerald has been in the industry for over 30 years. He was the founder of Detour Gold, and he has been spearheading the vision for our technical program since he joined the company. He brings tremendous passion and experience. He's put 3 mines into production. I myself came from the capital markets, and I saw Goldterra as an opportunity of lifetime, and that's why I left my position in the institutional equity capital markets to join the company, where I joined Joe Campbell, who was the founder of the company and continues to be the COO. We've got a new CFO, and we also have a very strong board of members that we believe will bolster our ability to make something of success for our shareholders. And I also would like to draw attention to the fact that the Northwest Territories has been a tremendous place for us to work. We've got excellent relationships with the community in Yellowknife, both with the local community, the Indigenous peoples, Joe Campbell and his team from the company, as it was previously called, Terrax, have done an excellent job of making us very happy guests. We will always view ourselves as guests in the territories. Over time, we've had all of our drill permits issued in record time. There have been several mines permitted in the Northwest Territories in the last 5 years, and we have very strong community and support for mining. So in summary, Goldterra is a tremendous opportunity for people to leverage this gold price run that we've seen. And we look forward to bringing out the results of our campaign to drill what we view as our flagship target at the Campbell Shear, just adjacent to the city of Yellowknife. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Okay, let's move on to you. You are new to the role of CEO at Nighthawk Gold. Congratulations on that, but certainly not new to operating in the region. Can you give us a bit of background on Nighthawk and tell us a little bit more about their project?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. My name is Kevon Salehi. I'm the newly appointed President CEO of Nighthawk Gold. Nighthawk trades under the ticker symbol NHK on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We are a Canadian-based junior gold exploration company, and we own a fairly large land position in what is referred to as the Indian Lake Gold Camp, which sits about 200 kilometers north of Yellowknife, which, as David mentioned, has been a major mining hub to a lot of mining activities over the last several decades, especially when you look at the diamond industry. Our core asset is the Colmac Gold Project, which was a historical site for mine production in the early 90s. When Royal Oak owned it, and close to 500,000 ounces of gold was produced from that mine before the company went bankrupt. To date, with all the work that Nighthawk has done, we've basically added about 2 million ounces of resources in all categories, which sits at our core asset, which is the Colmac Gold Project. Now, to put it in perspective, over the last several years, with all the work that Nighthawk has done, close to 200,000 meters of drilling have been done on site, which I think is a fairly remarkable achievement when you look at the limited amount of capital drilling that has been done on the property. So we've had a very good success rate, and our conversion of drill holes to actual resources in the ground has been very successful. Going forward, we have a very aggressive and accelerated exploration program planned for the next 12 to 24 months. We've just extended our permits at site, which allow us to go from 3 drills to 7 drills. So over the next 12 to 24 months, we are looking at doubling the total amount of meters that we've drilled on site year to date, or project to date, I should say. And that's all in an attempt to increase our current resource of 2 million ounces at Colmac substantially, and move the projects towards what I think is a natural next step towards a PEA stage. 2021, I think, is going to be a very transformational year for the company. We also have a new management team in place, of course, with myself being appointed in early December. And we've just added Richard Roy as our newly appointed Vice President of Exploration, who brings a lot of experience from the junior to even mid-sized gold mining space. And we're looking forward to a very busy and exciting 2021.
Great. Thanks so much. Okay, on to you, Jeff. You're joining us all the way from Australia today. Please tell us a little bit more about Vital Metals and Cheetah Resources and what stage of development you're at.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks for having me on. My name is Jeff Atkins. I'm the Managing Director of Cheetah Resources and also Cheetah's parent company, Vital Metals. Vital Metals is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange under ticker VML. Cheetah owns the Netchalacho, or the surface assets of the Netchalacho Rare Earth Project, which is located about 100 kilometres east of Yellowknife. We purchased the asset from Avalon in 2019, and over the last 12 to 18 months, we've managed to progress that project to the state where our target is to enter production in 2021. For those who don't know, rare earths are a specialty mineral, and they're used primarily in electric vehicles, wind turbines, miniaturization, things like that. So anything which revolves around energy efficiency and renewable energy requires rare earths. So they're a very topical mineral at the moment. The status of the project is that, as I mentioned, our target is to enter production in 2021, and that is the first project which will have entered production for about 5 years in the world in rare earths. And this really is a remarkable achievement to consider that over the last, we've only held the asset for 18 months and we're already in that position of going through the regulatory process, the studies, engagement with local communities, but to be in a position to be targeting mobilising a mine fleet within the next 3 months is really quite an achievement. And I think it says a lot about the environment of working in the Northwest Territories, of the fact that we've been able to do that. Typically for these types of projects, you would expect that process to take about 5 years, and we've managed it within 18 months. In terms of Cheetah, our expertise is rare earths. Our entire management team has come out of the rare earths industry over the last 10 to 15 years. And we established the company based on the lessons that we've learned in operating these projects in the past. Myself, I worked at Lynas Corporation, which was it started a large rare earth mine in 2007. And our senior management team have also come out of Lynas as well. So we're really applying all the lessons that we've learned over the last 10 to 15 years into Cheetah Resources to make it a success.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on to the fireside chat portion. I'm going to ask a number of questions here and kind of go around the round table, but feel free to jump in at any time as well. Let's start with a look back at 2020. How did the year shape up or shake out for you, for your company, and for the region in general, in your perspective? Let's start with you, David.
Thanks, Jessica. I think it's a great question, and one that I'll take the opportunity to answer from the perspective of Goldterra. We've long touted the value of being close to a city, especially a city like Yellowknife, and we didn't realize doing that for a couple of years how that would play out in a situation like we have with COVID-19. And so, despite the fact that it's been a very challenging year, in some ways, we've realized that, again, this ability to be in the Northwest Territories and in the city of Yellowknife has been a tremendous blessing, and we've been able to operate. We actually, when lockdown started at the beginning of the pandemic, recognized that due to the situation that we were in and the jurisdiction and us being so close to town, we didn't have large camps. We didn't have to house people together or feed them in sort of larger situations. We were able to send everybody home at night and comply with the regulations and keep everybody safe. So to us, we haven't been impacted terribly. We're obviously impacted by what we see around us and all of the suffering that has happened. But for us, we've been able to operate. We've been able to conduct 2 extensive exploration programs and continue to do so while keeping people safe in the community. So we're very fortunate and thankful for that. But largely we haven't been impacted by anything other than the rise in the gold price, which is positive.
No, absolutely. Great. And so happy to hear, that you were able to work so well with all the restrictions, that were brought to us from COVID as well. Okay. So Kayvan, I know that, you just joined the company at the end of 2020. But in your perspective, give us a bit of background about how, the company got through the year. And what are maybe some of the reasons why you wanted to join?
Sure. Well, look, as David said, 2020 has been a very challenging year for everybody, and Nighthawk was not an exception to that either. The way we operate is we open our exploration camps towards the end of February, so we don't drill all year round. And of course, last year, the opening of the camp coincided with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So as a result of that, and just to ensure health and safety of our employees and all our contractors, we closed the camp down and we halted all operations. And of course, as this numbers started coming down and restrictions were lifted, we managed to get the camp, the company managed to get the camp slowly opened up. But that certainly affected our drilling results and in terms of total meters drilled. So if you look at last year's results, we drilled just over 22,000 meters in the ground, and that's roughly half of what the company had done in any given year prior to COVID-19. So yeah, it did impact our exploration operations. Having said that, it gave us a chance to make sure that we had all the health and safety protocols in place. So we are well prepared and ready to open the camp up again at the end of February. And of course, we're monitoring the situation very closely. It all depends on how the situation with the pandemic progresses on over the next couple of months. We'll act accordingly.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, let's move over to Jeff now, and I want to mention maybe our fourth panelist today, Shirley, the cat who's been walking through your screen. Give her a shout out.
Yes.
So how did the year shake out for you and your company for 2020?
Well, obviously, as you can see, one of the biggest impacts is my cat has decided that she's now a video star, so she's on video calls. Look, 2020 has certainly been a challenging year from our perspective. And I think it's always difficult to start a project which is located in a different country to where you are. And one of the biggest challenges that we've had is obviously the shutdown of international borders. So from our perspective, the impact has really been twofold. Obviously, we've had the issues which we've needed to account for on the ground, and similarly to Kayvan, we made the decision at the very beginning of the pandemic to shut down our site and our camp for a period of I think 3 to 4 months. We felt that was the best decision to make from an occupational health and safety perspective, and not just from our project, but also recognising that from a community health perspective, we felt that was the correct decision to make, as that things were much more important than just what was happening on our project. So we made that decision to shut down the site. We reopened it in the summer to do site works, but that period enabled us to get all of our occupational health and safety procedures rewritten to account for the new reality. So that was very important from our perspective. From a larger company side of things, we have had to change how we would ordinarily operate. Instead of myself and our senior management team spending significant amounts of time in Yellowknife to help bring the project forward, we've had to try to do that remotely, which has obviously brought about a few other issues which you have to adapt to. However, in terms of impact to the company, as I mentioned at the start, despite the challenges of 2020, we're still on track to be commencing operations in 2021. So whilst it has been challenging, I think we've adapted fairly well to that. Could we have done it a bit better? Probably. But I think we've adapted very well to still be on track to enter production this year.
That's great news, Jeff. Thanks for that. Okay, you've all chosen to explore and advance projects in the region. Why is NWT an attractive area for mining and exploration in your perspective? David, we'll start with you again.
I think in all of our cases, I don't want to speak for the other guys, but I know a little bit about their projects. First and foremost, there are still relatively unexplored or underexplored assets in the Northwest Territories that are, have tremendous potential. And so it starts with those. And then it starts with communities that are welcoming, communities that are, willing to support our efforts to, bring value, to bring new business. And so, these things are never without their challenges. It's never a straight line to success. But I think that, the Northwest Territories is host to wonderful resources and relatively untapped, and I think that with the help of federal governments, we can, see a path towards success and prosperity for all three of our companies and the other companies that are operating there, as well as for the people that are local to the communities.
Great, good answer. And Keevan, in your perspective on this?
Sure. Listen, I think there is huge potential for mineral exploration and mining industry in general in the NWT. And, we talked about it earlier, having spent the last 2-3 years prior to Nighthawk working for a company that built and operates an asset through a joint venture partnership with De Beers, of course, in the NWT. I think the potential for mineral exploration is huge. Especially again, as David mentioned, there is so much untapped and virgin ground to still be explored. And especially when you combine that with scarcity of, new discoveries, whether it's gold, copper, or any other commodities around the globe. So I think NWT is well positioned for a lot more economic activity. And again, I think David touched on it. It's just, to me, it's going to be a healthy balance and a function of investment both from the private sector and also the public sector in the form of, infrastructure, but be it road or extension of power grids or whatever. So yeah, I think there's huge potential for exploration and mine development in NWT. I think, I touched on it briefly in my opening remarks, but the territory has been a host to a lot of economic activity in our industry over the past several decades. Just look at the diamond industry and all the exploration and mine development that has taken place in the region. And yeah, if I can just speak about Nighthawk specifically, I mean, our land position and this district scale size of the property and all the, highly prospective targets that we've identified on our grounds with very limited capital expenditures to date, I think demonstrates that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeff, what is your perspective on, why the Northwest Territories is an area for mining and exploration?
Look, I think fundamentally with mining projects, as David and Keevan have said, first and foremost, to be a successful mining jurisdiction, you need to have quality assets, and that is going to be the make or break of any district, and that's certainly something where the Northwest Territories has some incredible projects. From our perspective, the Netchalacho project and what we are looking at developing, I would say that's the best project I've seen, and our entire team has worked on other rare earth projects, and all of us just can't believe the quality of the asset there in the first instance. So that's obviously the first point. The second point is that there is a real desire to build the mining industry, and that means that not only have you got the assets, but within the government, within the communities, there's a real desire to build the industry. Mm-hmm. So you're left in a situation where not only have you got a good project, but you're welcomed into the region. And as David said, we are visitors to the region. We are, and particularly from our perspective, being an Australian company, we've been welcomed with open arms. And that's not only with the government, but particularly with the local communities and how much they have welcomed us and been happy to work with us to find a way to develop the project. And as I mentioned at the start, to have a process of 18 months, less than 18 months from completing the acquisition to being in a position where we're starting to at the moment, we're building an ice road, which will then to enable the mobilisation of the mining fleet. You couldn't do that in a lot of jurisdictions. So, that says a lot to the benefits of the Northwest Territories.
Awesome. Let's move on and speak a bit about infrastructure. I know it's a big topic in the Northwest Territories. What are some positive practices that you see that are in place to help with infrastructure? But then I also want to know, what are some of the challenges that you each face in regards to infrastructure as well? So David, let's start with you.
Okay. I'm going to start by painting with the broader strokes, and maybe my esteemed colleagues can sort of drill down on some more details. Look, Canada has a history of being a country that is built on infrastructure. This is a country that is vast with tremendous resources, not a very dense population historically. And so infrastructure is the backbone of establishing, industry and commerce and communities. And if I look at the Northwest Territories and the city of Yellowknife, which now is a city that if I got into an Uber in Vancouver, I could take it all the way to almost to our drill site.
Oh.
But that's a thing that takes time to establish, to develop roads and power and all that goes with ultimately building a mine, as Kayvon mentioned. The diamond mines that have been built in the Northwest Territories, they weren't built overnight, and the infrastructure that exists to have built those needs to continue to improve. So there are initiatives and efforts by right at the community level all the way through the territory and up to the federal government to continue to expand that infrastructure. Power is something that is certainly challenging for I think both the community. I don't want to speak for people who live in Yellowknife because I don't live there, but those of our partners in Yellowknife are challenged with that, and certainly for the future, for our country to continue to develop. I think these are big ticket items. They're expensive, so it doesn't happen overnight, and it requires the political will of not just the local communities, but also the support of our nation broadly. And we're seeing that support come to the table, and we're very happy for that. So.
Very good. Kayvon, can you speak to that a little bit? Some of the positive practices that you see in place here, and maybe some of the biggest challenges that you still see out there?
I think David covers it really well. The only thing I would add, and I just want to support it, specific to Nighthawk as an example. I mean, if you look at our properties, we're located about 200 kilometers north of Yellowknife, right? Which is has been a major mining hub for the past several decades. Now, if you look at infrastructure, and the key two ingredients to developing a mine down the road, excuse me, is generally all year round road access and power. Even though our site's about 200 kilometers away from Yellowknife, there is currently a all year road under construction, which I believe is going to be completed either this year or early next year. That gets it provides access to the local communities in the area, but it kind of gets us halfway to our properties. And of course, in terms of power as well, there's a power line that's roughly about 100 kilometers to the south of our properties. So to David's point, even though we're not there yet, as a CEO of Nighthawk and a junior exploration company that's looking to ultimately down the road build a project, I couldn't be more excited about the possibility of having some of that infrastructure further extended. Now, again, David mentioned it, it's not going to happen overnight, and that has to be supported by further success and capital from companies like Nighthawk and exploration and additional resources to actually show economic viability for our projects going forward.
Right. Jeff, do you have anything to add on this?
I do, and I guess for me it's been a bit of a learning curve coming from Australia. going into the Northwest Territories. Our project is a little over 100 kilometres away from Yellowknife. There are no roads. There is no power going to the site. And if I was anywhere else in the world, the Netchalacho project would be very difficult to develop. The reason why we are able to develop it is primarily because we're located in the Northwest Territories, and we're located on the Great Slave Lake, which is fundamentally a great highway. It means that in winter we have the opportunities of ice roads, and in summer we have barge access. Now, what that means from a mining project is that when you look at mining projects, they're half to do with the actual deposit itself, and they're half to do with infrastructure. And the success of a project is largely driven by how the percentage of capital which you have to spend actually on the mining project compared to associated infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Now, because we're located on the Great Slave Lake, it means that for us, that percentage of spend on the processing and the mining is extremely high. We have very minimal costs to actually build enabling infrastructure. In winter, it is a very simple case of putting an ice road on the Great Slave Lake. We did that last year. We're doing that again this year. And in summer, it's barge access with direct landing at the site. So that really is a unique benefit. And as I say, if it wasn't for the fact that we were located in the Northwest Territories, being located 100 kilometres from the nearest town without any infrastructure going out to the site, it wouldn't be possible. Certainly not in the way that we're looking at developing the project.
Very good. We touched a little bit on it already, but I just want, like a brief perspective on the geographical potential that you all see from your different perspectives. As I stated at the beginning of the talk here, Northwest Territories is the second largest of the 3 territories, and it's vastly unexplored. So if we can speak a little bit more on the geological potential, David.
Okay, thank you. That's a great setup. We think that the geological potential of the district is absolutely world-class. There are really only a handful, I think, of prospective large-scale areas for gold discovery. And again, as my colleagues mentioned earlier, there hasn't been any real discovery in the gold sector in quite some time. So for us to find ourselves sitting on the doorstep of historic, highly prolific gold mining in what we view as a very untapped and underexplored, you even call it unexplored, region is a tremendous opportunity. I mean, these are truly world-class projects that you see presented before you here today. So, I think that's just the best place to leave it. It's all about potential, and it's all about access to that potential. And I think we have, the right mix.
Awesome. Keevan, what is your perspective on this?
Sure. I'll be specific to Nighthawk and our land position. I mean, I touched on it briefly earlier, but again, we also, as David said, we're sitting on a land position that's very highly prospective, with very little work that's been done over the past several years. We've identified 2 million ounces of resources in our core asset, which is the Cormac Gold Project. In addition to that, we've identified numerous highly potential and highly prospective targets that that sits on our properties. We call them satellite deposits, and I think that really sets the company up going forward as a potentially multi-million ounce resource developer. We truly believe that we have the land position that's capable of delivering such a resource. There are a lot of similarities in terms of geology and structure and style of mineralization to another gold camp, the Timmins gold camp, which I again touched on briefly earlier, which has produced in the excess of 50 million ounces over the past several decades, right? So, I agree with David. There's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of ground that still has to be tested. And I couldn't be more excited about our prospects going forward.
That's great. Jeff, what's your perspective on this geological potential here?
Well, I guess from my perspective, the fact that we're looking at a different sort of project to what Kevan and David are. So we're dealing in critical minerals rather than gold and diamond, which is, I guess, the more traditional mining project in the Northwest Territories. So from our perspective, we're looking at what is the next big thing in terms of minerals. And from that perspective, if you look at what's happening in the world around energy efficiency, renewable energies, and also some geopolitical issues going on at the moment where you have governments talking with each other about critical mineral strategies. And particularly with, there's a huge push for establishing infrastructure supply chains and supply chains for these critical minerals in North America. That means that there's a lot of competition of who's going to really take advantage of that. And that's where I think Northwest Territories has a huge potential, because there aren't many jurisdictions which have quality rare earth projects or other critical minerals like lithium, niobium, those types of minerals. And there's a lot of prospective sites around the Northwest Territories in those critical minerals. And that really, I think, provides a huge opportunity for the Northwest Territories, not only from a mining industry perspective, but actually its importance to overall critical mineral strategies for Canada and North America.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great perspective. I want to remind everyone that's watching, if you have any questions, to please send them in while they're fresh in your mind, and they'll get queued up for our live question and answer that we'll be doing after we're done the fireside chat. Okay, let's move on to ESG. Obviously, it was one of the hottest topics in 2020. How does the Northwest Territory exploration and mining and any processes within your company address investors' growing concerns on seeing metrics in this area? So let's start with you, David.
Thanks, Jessica. I think it's high time that these issues have really sort of come to the fore. Certainly in the investing world, these are now hot topics, and I think I can only speak for Goldterra when I say that for a junior exploration company, a tremendous amount of effort has gone into effort and money spent has gone into making sure, as I said earlier on, that we behave as guests. Engagement is something that I was absolutely blown away by when I was joining the project. I couldn't have imagined joining a team with limited bandwidth and limited financial resources that could have done a better job than was done by Joe Campbell and his team when they were putting this land package together. The underlying sort of theme here is that our property, our assets, our exploration, they all occur on the traditional lands of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation, and also, the project borders the city of Yellowknife and shares multiple land uses, hydro, road, airport, communications, recreational trails. So we're in a very sort of unique position as a junior company to have, quite a complex and diverse engagement program. I think that, while we're small, we try to think big, and our values and goals and communications absolutely have to be aligned with the community. So we're kind of glad, almost in a way, that investors, institutional funds are all sort of asking all of our peers to rise up to the level, because it's just important for the whole industry to look good.
Great. Kevan, what are your thoughts on ESG from Nighthawk's perspective and working in the Northwest Territories in general?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. Well, certainly for me personally, I'm really glad to see that ESG is actually finally center stage when it comes as an investment theme. I think to add to what David said, I think just being a Canadian miner and the jurisdiction that we operate in, we are privileged to be working with what I would consider very high standards if you compare us globally to other countries. And I think the same thing can be said about Australia. So in that regard, we're very fortunate. Now, that doesn't suggest that we have to stop there, and I think it's important to go above and beyond. In my past experience and all the companies that I've been involved with, the company has done a great job to go above and beyond what is the regulatory requirement. For Nighthawk specifically, we have great relationships and great engagement with all our local communities. We've just actually, as the company is starting to grow and advance our projects even further with more activity on our grounds, we've just appointed someone who's going to be basically our liaison between and she's going to be handling all our relationships in the local community. So we are actually accelerating our engagement within the local communities.
That's excellent to hear. Jeff, what is your perspective on this?
Well, from our perspective, there's being a developer of rare earth projects, we have one other aspect which we need to consider with regards to ESG. Obviously, I agree with David and Kevan with regards to our commitments to the local communities. I'll add to that as well. We're operating in an area which is pristine. So in terms of impact to the environment, we really need to ensure that our impact is minimised to the greatest extent possible. The other consideration from our perspective is, as I mentioned earlier, rare earths are used in renewable energy and energy efficiency and green technologies. So that adds an additional requirement where to produce those products, and when you talk about electric vehicles, you read quite a lot in the press around, well, okay, electric vehicles might be a more green option. But the question is always, well, what about the extraction of the minerals? And so therefore there is a real push, and from our customers, there is a very real push on ESG principles and how you can minimize environmental impact in terms of the production of these minerals. Mm-hmm. From our perspective, the approach which we're taking is, and this is one of the real benefits from a geological side of things as well, is on our mine site, we don't have any process chemicals. We don't have any processed water with our demonstration plant. So we are going to be the first rare earth project which will primarily just use ore sorting to produce a concentrate product at our startup operation. Our plant is not located, doesn't have concrete foundations. So it's simply sitting on a compacted earth. So from an impact perspective, environmental impact perspective, we've really looked at how we can minimize those impacts. And I think that's a very important consideration then when you're looking for the support of local communities as well, because you have to demonstrate these are the lands of the local communities. So actually addressing that and seeing how you can minimize that in all aspects of your operation is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we've touched on it a little bit, and we've talked about community involvement, but Indigenous leadership and engagement is clearly a crucial part of any successful exploration in Canada. Can you speak on your experiences in the Northwest Territories to that regards, David?
Broadly, our experiences have been excellent. As I said, we've been largely welcomed. We want to make sure that we always try to do better. We certainly would never say that we're perfect, but it's always a topic internally. Looking into our company, we continually consider ourselves to be very fortunate to be where we are, because our engagement with the local Indigenous communities, with which we partner on a variety of levels, initiatives, have been always engaged with us. That's the first thing. I mean, you can't have a conversation if the other party doesn't want to talk. Right. And so I would say that you're not always going to agree on everything you talk about. That would be boring. And we are just very thankful for the fact that the local communities surrounding Yellowknife and our project have always been open to a conversation, and for that we're thankful, and we'll always try to be as respectful as we can in that conversation, and open-minded.
And from an employment perspective?
From an employment perspective, we've done a decent job of trying to make sure that we're providing opportunities. We are currently in the midst of building a team that's proprietary to us, from people who are local to the community. We've made 2 local hires, and of course we would extend those opportunities equally to anyone within the community. So of course we look forward to advancing on that sort of tangent, if you will.
Excellent. Kevin, what is Nighthawk's stance on this?
So look, for me, in terms of general comment on our commitment and engagement with local communities, I think every community in Canada has unique characteristics, and for all companies and developers that want to operate within the industry, it's really important to identify, acknowledge, and respect those unique characteristics and the needs that come along with that, right? So how do you do that? It's by effective early engagement with the local communities. And essentially making sure that the dialogue is continuous to ensure long-lasting relationships. And for us, Nighthawk, that's certainly going to be our approach. We already have great relationships with all the local communities. And as I said before, we've appointed someone who's going to be basically in charge of this, and we're accelerating that program even faster as we grow our projects and increase our visibility and activity in the region.
That's great to hear. Jeff, what are your thoughts on some of the Indigenous leadership and engagement within the Northwest Territories?
Look, I think the simplest way to answer that is, as I mentioned before, in 18 months we've gone from finalising the purchase of an asset through regulatory approvals, land use permits, water licenses, having those in place, and being in a position to mobilise our fleet. There is no chance of being able to achieve that without the support and of the Indigenous communities. They were and they have been instrumental in us being able to achieve that, and for that I have to thank them. The way that all the communities have operated and communicated with us has just been first class. As David said, we're not going to do everything right, and I think when we talk about one of the impacts of COVID, for myself and my senior management team to not be able to travel to Yellowknife, that's one area which is really, I think, has been a challenge for us, and we've had to learn a new way of how we can communicate and how we can engage at that senior management level. But yeah, I think the the approach which has been taken by the communities has just been first class. And as David mentioned earlier as well, you can't have a conversation if the other party doesn't want to talk.
Right.
And it's been a really good experience for us. It's my first time working up in Canada, and I can only speak positively of the experience.
Oh, that's awesome. This actually leads on to our next question, which is partnerships. So the Invest in Canada's North initiative that launched last year has been a big highlighter to the North. Can you speak about the value in that, and maybe touch on some other partnerships and experiences working in the Northwest Territories, David?
Well, we have had a great experience, Jessica, as you alluded. We've been involved with this initiative in the past year, and for us, creating partnerships is everything. There's no way that a junior gold exploration company in our position can move a project forward without continually making new partnerships. So we value this initiative. We've seen very positive results. We've received largely positive feedback, and we look forward to building further partnerships through this initiative.
Absolutely. Well, it brought us together today. So, Kevan, can you speak on this a little bit? I know, like I said, you're a bit new to Nighthawk, but sure. The Invest in Canada's North initiative was launched last year and has, been a tremendous highlight to the North. Is there any other experiences that you can even pull on with partnerships in the North?
Look, just to add to what David was saying, I think this platform itself, or any other partnership that essentially increases visibility and brings more exposure to the natural resources industry in the North, is going to be a positive move towards more activity in the industry in the region. So that's all I would say about it. I can't really speak specifically about previous partnerships, but yeah, anything that can increase exposure is a good step forward.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Oh, look, I don't really have too much more to add than what Kevan and David mentioned. The other thing which I would add is, in terms of the partnerships, and this is an extension to the previous conversation around how we found from working with the local communities. At last year's conference, we signed an MOU with Nahanni Daton Show for our mining contract.
Very good.
So, over the last 12 months, we've worked very closely with them to finalise that contract. Mm-hmm. And to think that that's been a 12-month process, and yet it's been the way that we've been able to work together with Nahanni and Daton Show has been. It makes the project and bringing the project into operations far easier, mm-hmm. and actually, to be honest, a far more pleasant experience as well. So that's been fantastic, and we're looking forward to actually having an Indigenous mining contractor operating on their own land.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, we're moving on now to our final question of the fireside chat, but then we'll be going into our live question and answer after. We're right at the start of 2021. What is some of your perspectives on a commodities outlook for the remainder of the year? We have gold and rare earth elements to touch on. So David, let's start with you from your perspective on the outlook here.
Well, as I said earlier, I think we're entering a massive bull run in gold, mm-hmm. and the challenge with predicting commodity prices is typically timing, and that will always remain the challenge. So I'm not an economist. I'm not mm-hmm. David Rosenberg. I'm David Suda, and just a lowly equity capital markets guy who sat on a desk and traded stocks for a long enough time to think that given the economic backdrop, and what's been happening in the world, we certainly are entering a higher gold price environment. Is it going to go straight up? I don't think so. I'm not going to predict price, but I think that, for a project like ours and a project like Kayvon's, even at these prices, we're entering some very heady times, and we're very thankful for that. Hopefully this is just the start of a long cycle to the upside.
Excellent. Keyvan?
Sure. I believe that we are in early innings, in the early innings of what could be even a bigger run for the price of gold going forward the next couple of years, especially when you look at all the government spending in the form of stimulus, not just in the US, but all governments. And that's, and I think we're not out of the woods on that yet, especially when you see the COVID numbers where they are today. And before we're done, I think you're going to see a lot more government spending. And that's really the primary reason why I think gold's going to continue to perform well.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the rising debt levels in the U.S. And if you take the U.S. debt, I think by the time the U.S. government is done printing money, it's going to be well in excess of 30 trillion. And when you compare that to their GDP of 20 trillion, that ratio has essentially doubled over the past 10 years. And I think and there's a historical precedence for it. I mean, if you go back to the last major crisis we had back in 08, 09, gold, along with all other equities, initially sold off aggressively as people were panic selling and fleeing into cash. But over the next 3 years, it nearly tripled from around 700, if I'm not mistaken. So I think today, what we're seeing with COVID-19 pandemic and the crisis of last year, I think you're seeing the same thing. And I think that trend it could repeat itself. And that's why I'm personally optimistic about the price of gold. I'll leave it there.
Okay, it's a good place to leave it. Okay, so Jeff, what's your perspective from a rare earth standpoint?
Well, rare earths and other critical minerals are really heading into an interesting time, I think, and not just from a consumer perspective, but I think the recent US election will also have a very, very big impact on rare earths and other critical minerals. And I touched on it before in terms of the reasons why. When you look at the key trends in the world today, we're moving into an area where we're going down the path of electrification of vehicles, and that's a massive, massive change. We're moving into an era of increased renewables, and particularly around wind turbines and solar. We're also moving into an era of miniaturization and robotization, artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the big three changes in the world. And the World Economic Forum classifies that as the fourth industrial revolution. And in every single one of those areas, rare earths are critical. So to achieve that, and with all of these trends, rare earths are absolutely critical. The final thing then is you add into it the geopolitical situation. And you have a situation where currently you have these critical minerals controlled fundamentally by one country, with China producing the vast majority of the world's rare earths, and not just from a raw material supply, but particularly down the supply chain through the production of magnets and metals. So you add changes in demand, you add into it geopolitical issues, and you basically have a perfect storm for rare earths and critical minerals. And you also have a situation where the projects themselves are very difficult to develop, typically. So it's very difficult for companies to react quickly to these changes in demand. So all of those things added in together means that we're in for a pretty wild ride, I think, in terms of rare earths and and other critical minerals. Now, how that will play out, nobody can really predict that, as the rare earth market typically hasn't been the most transparent in the world when you look at how it's behaved over the last 10 to 15 years. But fundamentally, we are heading into an area where the supply and demand dynamic is really moving to a supply deficit. and that provides a huge opportunity. And from our perspective and the approach which we're taking to be the next producer of rare earths in the world, and developing a strategy which enables us to react quickly to market changes, certainly makes us very excited about what the future holds.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, Jeff. I think this is a great point to end the fireside chat with our panelists as we kick off the Invest Northwest Territories Session 1. Again, you can find us at #RemoteRoundup. We're going to do a quick thank you to our sponsors, and then we're going to jump straight in to the live question and answer period with our attendees. So don't go anywhere. We have a lot of questions lined up already, so let's just jump right into it. We have about 20 minutes here. Our first question is for everybody. Given the scarcity of skilled trades in the Northwest Territory and the multiple projects that we've been talking about here today, where is everybody sourcing their workers from? So that's a great question to kick off here from Michael. So let's start with David.
Okay, thanks. That's a good question. And it gives us an opportunity to, again, sort of fly the gold Terra flag. We're so happy to be next to a city, and the city and the local community is a source of skilled trade. There's definitely a rich history in mining in the Northwest Territories that has extended to the current operation of mines, and Yellowknife is the hub for those mines. So as I said earlier, we've also made it a deliberate move to hire a team, a proprietary team to us from the local community. Obviously, there are some or certain limitations to who's available and when they're available from within the community, and so in those situations we do bring people from the outside, and also some of the contractors that we use. We also can't necessarily control who they're using, but again, the local community for us is a significant source of skilled labor and trade.
Excellent. Kayvon, what is your perspective on this?
The same goes for us. Although we're considered a remote operation, we're pretty close to Yellowknife, so we're a short haul flight away from Yellowknife, which is a major hub. And there's actually on the other side, in terms of the question, I think there are a lot of technical expertise and resources as Yellowknife is a major mine. With that said, we are an exploration company, so we use a major contractor to do a lot of the work for us on site. And although we have people coming in from all over the country, we also look at hiring local communities to our contractors. So essentially, David covered it really well, and I agree with most of the stuff that he said.
Great, thank you. Sorry, you just cut out a little bit there at the end. Jeff, where are you mostly sourcing your skilled workers from?
So our situation is a little bit different to David and Kayvon's in that our workforce that we're looking for at the moment is actually an operational workforce rather than an exploration one. However, similarly, our focus is on maximising the level of local employment. And at this stage, we are, wherever possible, we will employ locally. There may be some specialist positions which do require us to bring people in from outside of the Northwest Territories, but our focus is on maximising the levels of local employment.
That's excellent. I actually have another question just directed right to you, Jeff. This is from Bud, and he asks, how are you set up for infrastructure? I know we did talk a little bit about it, but he wants a bit more specifics on roads, power, camp, milling and crushing, etc.
Okay, so from a road perspective, we're currently in the process of building an ice road out over to the site, and that will be used to mobilise our mining fleet, ore sorter, etc. And that will occur over the next few months. From a power perspective, we actually have a very low power demand. We do not have grinding circuits or things like that, which really tend to draw major amounts of power. So we're able to generate power just through on-site generators, and it's only a very small amount. From the camp, we're fortunate that we do have an existing camp at the site, which was previously constructed by Avalon, and we are upgrading that as we speak as well. So from an infrastructure perspective, we really don't need a lot. As I say, it's a single generator which comes in a container. It's an ice road. We're not going to be building new roads out to the site.
Excellent. This next question is for all the panelists, and it's from...
What sources of energy are you using in your operations? Are there opportunities or possibly plans to introduce renewable energy sources?
I can start and just continue with the order that we've been going. For us, we are an exploration company, so we don't have a large draw on energy yet. We hope to need a lot of energy soon. But for now, again, being in town, our partners, our staff, live in the community. Our core shack is in the community, so we're on local power. And then when we're in the field, we're using the traditional forms of power to power drills and any of our other tools. We are always looking towards more sustainable and renewable energies. Currently, what's available to us as an exploration company is pretty limited. So we look to the technology providers to lead the way, and certainly when possible, we'll be making moves to minimize our carbon footprint.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to you, Kevin.
Sure, yeah. Same goes for us. We are an exploration company. We are a remote operation as well. So right now, based on the technology that's available to us, our only option really is using generators on site. With that said, as we start thinking about advancing our projects and getting to a PEA and eventually building a mine down the road with additional resources, certainly sustainable energy and how we look at the way we would power a potential mining site down the road is something that's on our mind. And for sure, we'll be looking at the economics of that as well. And hopefully technology, whether it's solar, wind, whatever it's going to be, which is an alternative to the traditional ways of energy or providing power to any mine site, will be there with us as well as we advance our projects forward.
Excellent. Jeff, let's move on to you for this.
Yes, so we actually did quite an in-depth study on the viability of using solar with batteries for our startup operation. In this instance, we weren't for our startup operation, we weren't able to use that, and instead of just going with a traditional generator. However, the technology itself is something which we are very interested in, and seeing how we are going to be able to use it and maximize the use of renewables in the future. As mentioned before, rare earths are a product which is used in renewable energy, and therefore there is a real desire from us to maximize the use of renewables as we move forward, particularly when we start getting into larger and more into larger operations.
Great. This question is from Tony. She says, he says, good morning, everyone. With the metal commodity markets increasing, how can a recycler of the recycling industry help with producing revenue to subsidize your business? That's an interesting question. So we'll start with you, David.
Sorry, you broke up, Jessica.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's
Could you just repeat the question?
A live event. Yeah. Okay, so this question is, how can a recycler or the recycling industry help with producing revenue to subsidize your business?
That's a good question, and not one that I can really answer intelligently. Not something that we've spent obviously enough time thinking about, but given the stage of our operations, we, offhand, I can't think of how a recycler would be able to help us locally. But certainly, if somebody has an idea, our door is open, and we're always happy to listen to any ideas that we could get on that front.
Thank you. Kayvon,
Yeah, that's a good
perspective on
question.
this?
Yeah, it's got me thinking. I can't really answer that well either. To David's point, if somebody has an idea as to how we can actually, whether it's generating revenue or finding ways of saving costs for our operations, I'd certainly be happy to hear about it. But I can't really comment on it. I mean, but it is an interesting question. Definitely got me thinking.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, as with David and Kayvon, it's not something which I've really come across in the past, in the ability for recyclers to add revenue to the business. With rare earths itself, recycling is a hot topic, and how rare earth products can be recycled from existing products. But from an operational perspective, yeah, I'd have to really, if anybody has any ideas of how that might work, we'd certainly be open to listening.
Excellent. We have about 5 minutes left for the question and answer. I'm going to go on to a question from Hart. Are there opportunities for Indigenous-owned service companies from outside of the Northwest Territories to provide support in the areas of community engagement and environmental services? If so, who can we connect with to discuss this? It's a bit of a loaded question, but let's start with you, David.
It's a good question, and I think
Great
it's
question.
One worth asking, because we want to be able to state that we want to offer opportunity equally to anybody who wants to contribute to our project and partner with us. And so I am the right person to connect with, or by any of the via any of the contact information that's available on our website. Our door is always open, and we often hear from service providers from the local community, both Indigenous. And we've also heard from Indigenous-owned service companies from outside the Northwest Territories in the past. So please reach out, and we'd love to communicate with you.
That's great. Kayvan?
Yeah, same for us. We're always looking for partnerships from all over the place. As long as, look, there's value added for us as a company and our shareholders. We consider all opportunities, and I would be the right guy to actually contact with respect to this. And anybody who's got any ideas in terms of services or technologies that can help our operations, we're always more than happy to hear it, and our doors are open.
Jeff?
Yeah, we would always encourage any cooperation with any groups moving forward. And that's something which we would certainly encourage. In terms of contacts, that would either be myself or in Canada, David Connolly in our Yellowknife office.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And you can certainly reach out to me as well, and I can forward it off to anyone. I'm just Jessica@b-tv.com. Okay, so we're just about at the end for our first live question and answer. I'm just going to throw it out to the team if you guys had any closing thoughts to leave with investors out there on some, nuggets that are going to be coming up for your companies. Let's start with you, David.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Jessica, for moderating. You've done a tremendous job, as always. I said that we've been involved with this initiative for a period of time now, and we've seen nothing but positive feedback, and you've helped grow our partnerships. So thank you for that. And I'd like to also thank the Northwest Territories, the community of Yellowknife, the Indigenous communities that we engage with. I think this is an excellent context for discussion about what the opportunity is, not just for our shareholders, but for the community as well. And so Invest NWT has been a great experience. And, Goldterra is currently drilling our flagship target just next to the historic Con Mine. And we have tremendous amount of pent-up excitement. The drill is turning and will be generating results for the market to absorb and get excited about as we continue in this gold bull market. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kayvon?
Sure. Jessica, thank you. It's been great. And although the rest of the panel, David and Jeff, it's been great being on with you guys, and I've had a lot of fun. For us, we are a new team. I've been in the role for a couple of weeks, and we have a couple of other new additions. So it's going to be a very exciting year for us at Nighthawk, as I said in my earlier comments. We are doing a lot of planning over the next few weeks before we open up our exploration camp. We're looking at being very aggressive in the region and increasing our activity and our efforts towards a really exciting and robust project over the next couple of years. And yeah, it's going. I think it's going to be a transformational year for us. We've had some meetings so far this year, as early as it's been, and we're actually getting a lot of excitement and positive feedback from our key relationships, whether it's the investment community or all the local and regional stakeholders. And it's something that nobody. The one comment that's come back to us is that nobody really doubted the quality of our assets. It's just the aggressive style and approach that we're undertaking right now is something that everybody's getting excited about. So yeah, stay tuned. There's going to be lots of news flow, and I'm looking forward to this year. It should be very exciting for Nighthawk.
Very good. Jeff, some final thoughts?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, thanks very much for the invitation and having me on, and to the other panelists today. Big news for us really is as we move into operations, as we coming over the next couple of months will be the mobilisation of the mining fleet, commencement of mining operations, and the first product being produced later on this year. And I think one final comment is from the number of messages I've had, it's good to see that Shirley the cat has proved popular to this panel, and she certainly believes that she is the star of the show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, the three of you, for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure. And everyone who's watching, don't go anywhere, because we are going to now jump into our second panel discussion of the day.